Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with spring rolls. That's right, I'm very excited to show you this technique. And I did say technique, not recipe, since what you put in here really doesn't matter. What matters is that you realize all the magic that can be created with little more than a damp piece of rice paper. And hopefully once you see how cool this stuff is, you'll go out, pick up some of these wrappers, and go hog wild creating your own custom rolls. And by the way, wild hog would also be very good in this, as are pretty much anything edible you can cut into strips. So let's go ahead and get started. And speaking of edible strips, one big tip here, make sure you get all your filling ingredients ready before you start production. And for this particular roll, I'm going to go with chicken. And while I did poach it for this recipe, if you happen to have some leftover grilled chicken, that would be even better. And then besides the meat, I want a nice selection of veggies. I'm going to go with some strips of sweet red bell pepper, as well as some English cucumber, which of course has a nice mild flavor, hardly any seeds, and a great accent. It's true, English cucumbers just sound smarter than other cucumbers. And then I also did some strips of carrot, and I'm using what's called rainbow carrots. And in case you're wondering, flavor-wise, they're exactly the same as regular carrots, just more expensive. So if you can't swing those, don't worry, just regular peasant carrots will work. And then besides our strips of chicken and veggies, we also want some greens. So I'll be using some baby lettuces, the ubiquitous spring mix, and then besides the baby greens, I also like lots of fresh herbs. I'm going to go with basil, mint, and cilantro. So like I said, we will get all our filling ingredients prepped ahead of time before we move on to the star of the show, the rice paper. These are made, believe it or not, with nothing more than rice flour and water. And they look and feel exactly like a translucent piece of plastic. And what we're going to need before we can use this is to give it a dip in cold water. And what we want to do is soak it in that cold water until it just starts to become bendable and pliable. Are those the same things? Okay, if it's not wet enough, it's going to snap, and that's not good. But if it gets too hydrated, it's actually going to get too soft and sticky, and you won't be able to work with it. So I'm going to keep mine in the water until I get to this stage where it's just, like I said, sort of bendable. And the reason we only want to go to the just flexible stage is because when we pull it out of this bowl, we're going to set it down on a slightly damp towel to work. And because of the little bit of moisture in that towel, as well as the water that we've hydrated it with, by the time our fillings have been placed in, it should be at our desired level of flexibility, as you'll see. And at this point, we're ready to start filling. So what I'm going to do first is place down some of my baby greens right near the bottom. And as you're about to see, I like to do my fillings in two sections. So this is the first one. So I'm going to place down my baby lettuce, and then we'll go ahead and top that with some strips of chicken. And then along with our chicken, let's go ahead and add a few strips of pepper. And then I'm going to take the bottom of that wrapper, which by now has absorbed enough water so that it's going to be very flexible, sort of rubbery, and sort of sticky. And what I'll do is I'll kind of roll that over, kind of pressing down as I roll. And as soon as I roll that over and that rice paper touches the rest of the rice paper, it sticks right there. And at that point, we're going to stop and do the second part of the filling. So I'm going to go ahead and place down some more chicken. And then since we focused on lettuce in the first section, we won't do any greens in this section. We'll focus on lots of veggies. So I'm going to go ahead and place in some more peppers and cucumbers and rainbow carrots. And of course, it should be painfully obvious that this technique will work with literally any ingredients. So if you're not into the chicken, what about some strips of steak? Maybe with a little bit of arugula, some crumbled blue cheese. Ooh, that would be good. Or what about one of these with ham and Swiss? We could even sneak in a few spears of our homemade pickles. And then we'll top those veggies with a generous portion of herbs. And one tip here, especially if you're not going to eat these right away, is you always want to tear your herbs. See, I'm just tearing off pieces of basil and mint and cilantro. I'm not cutting them because that can make them turn black. So it's generally better just to use your fingers and tear the herbs up. And then once we're happy with the second part of our filling, we're simply going to complete the roll, again kind of pressing down, keeping everything nice and tight together, folding in the sides as we go. And because our rice paper is so soft and flexible and sticky, as long as you've left yourself an inch or two at the end, you'll be able to finish off that roll and it should seal perfectly. And there you go. So that looks pretty good. So sure, I could have done a better job tucking in the ends, but hey, what are you going to do? That looks good enough to me. And then as I do these, I like to transfer them onto a plate that has some just barely damp paper towels. You just want to dampen it and squeeze it out as best you can. And that will prevent these from drying out as you work. And do not, under any circumstances, let the spring rolls touch each other. Otherwise, when you go to serve these, they'll be all stuck together. And when you try to separate them, they will tear open and you will be sad. So make sure these are separated by either paper towels or plastic wrap. So I continued on. I'm just going to do 4. And if you're not going to serve them right away, we can go ahead and cover those in plastic and pop them in the fridge for a little bit. And then once you're ready to eat, all you need to do is pull these out, slice them in half, and serve. So let's slice in and see what we got. And if everything's gone according to plan, you should be looking at something like this. Just beautifully colorful and vibrant, fresh looking, healthy looking, with everything being encased by that impossibly thin, see-through rice paper wrapping. That is borderline provocative. And once all your stuff is sliced, so insanely easy. So I'm going to go ahead and serve up 2 rolls, which I think is a nice appetizer-sized portion. And I went ahead and I served mine with some spicy peanut sauce, which really worked beautifully. So let me go ahead and demonstrate my dipping technique, which I have perfected with years of practice. And that was absolutely delicious. And sure, if you want to make these a little more filling, you can go more traditional and do it like you may have had it in the Vietnamese restaurants where they also stuff it with those angel hair noodles. And that is quite nice. They usually do it with shrimp. So while I really do specifically like these particular ingredients in this, I'm almost going to be insulted if you do it exactly like I did it here. I mean, I really do want you to make this technique your own and brainstorm some incredible versions. You are, after all, the Sally Bowles of your spring rolls. So if lately life has not been the cabaret you've hoped for, I really do hope you give these a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.